Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. I'm here to give my review of episode 22 of Dark Shadows from the beginning, narrated by Alexandra Mulkey Isles, written by Art Wallace, directed by John Sedgwick. Um, John takes over for direction, the last episode, and he's here again. I'm going to get into something here in a minute with this. This is really good. This starts off at the Evans cottage, and Maggie is, just relaxing. She's having her coffee and reading the paper. Knock at the door. She gets up. She opens the door. It's Bert Devlin. He walks in, and she asks him, "Did he hear about the car accident? What does she know about it? Does he know about it?" Um, and he said, "Yeah." He said, "I know all about it, unfortunately." What Maggie does not know is that Roger Collins paid Burt Devlin a visit in his hotel room. Oh, and by the way, what he says, it wasn't an accident at all. Uh, it was attempted murder, and I love Catherine Lee Scott's reaction, dropping the coffee cup, breaking it. When we this is they cut away here. That's where they cut away and do the entrance. Very, very great timing, very great production and direction. But John Sedgwick so far. There is a focus in this episode I do want to get to, and I will get to it. Um, Maggie and Bert continue to talk. Maggie, talks to Bert more about the accident. And she tells me, you forget this is a hick town. M- Attempted murder doesn't happen every day. You know, he goes only in 10-year intervals, and she's like, that's not what he said. It's all right. He goes, and by the way, my charge was manslaughter, attempted murder. So there's a really, really great focus here of art. And what I mean is, we know Sam Evans is a painter. And while Burke and Maggie are having this great conversation with each other, we're going we're not panning the room, mind you, but we're sort of following the actors, which I love because, and you notice that too with a lot of DS episodes, that there's times we're just going to follow the actors, and why not? We saw that with the last episode with John Sedgwick's direction, and I love it here too because we're following Maggie Evans and Burke Devlin around this small Evans cottage. We know it's small. But what John Sedgwick is more doing is he's not just closing up, he's panning back. And he's trying to get the audience to notice something. And it's something you do not you notice a painting of a woman with very dark hair who sort of looks like Maggie. And then you hear Burt Devlin do say, "Your mom was a beautiful woman." So the portrait that is hanging on the easel is a painting or a portrait of Maggie's mother. This is going to be a big plot for why Sam testifies that Burke was the one driving the car. And I love John Sedgwick's attention to detail here. I mean, he may not have wrote this episode, but he damn sure focuses on the plot point of a subplot of the episode. That yes, we know Mitch Ryan's character went to jail. We know that he went to jail for 10 years. We know he only spent 5 years there. He got out for good behavior. We know that there's this secret that people just think it was Roger who testified against Burke. No, Sam did it as well. And it's something we learned further in this episode too, because after the whole conversation, we cut to the hotel restaurant where Sam Evans is drinking coffee, and but Roger Collins is there as well, and he's making a phone call to his sister Elizabeth, um, who, who they're talking about the car, and then Roger says, "Yeah, the car's, you know, the insurance is going to pay for it, yada yada yada." And he goes out, and finally Sam go, as Sam gets up, he tells the waitress lady that, "Hey, keep bringing the donuts over to that table over there." And he uh he goes over and could a starving artist sit down. You got room for a starving artist, and he's like, "I don't want to talk to you." And he sits down across from Sam sits down across from Roger, and I love as he's beginning to talk about Roger's car accident and probing him about it. The waitress is coming over, and he switches subject. He goes, "The view, the view is what I was looking for." Really just great line. And when she walks away, what you have happen is you have a conversation between Roger and Sam Evans, where Sam Evans says, you know, because Roger asked him, "You think I would lie about, him being near my car?" And Sam says, "Yeah, I do." And the reason Sam says this, and you find this out sort of in this episode, that Sam says, we lied about what happened. So he's referring to the accident. So right here that Burt Devlin was not the one who drove that car. You know for certain that it was most likely it was Roger. It was Roger. Um, could you as an audience member interpret it? It was Laura. No, no, I don't believe you could. So again, in my opinion, I want to stress that. So they're having a conversation, and Roger says something. He goes, you know, "If one of us were dead, we wouldn't have to worry about turning on the other. Don't tell me that thought hasn't crossed your mind." And it's a really great point by Roger. Um, when we go back to the Evans cottage, again, a great focus point of the portrait of, or the painting or portrait or whatever you want to say, of Maggie's mother, a focus of John Sedgwick's camera work and Dan Curtis Productions camera work. I love the focus. And this isn't the only portrait we're going to see in this episode. And it's not going to be the only mention we get of a portrait in this episode. Um, once once Sam comes home, he's shocked to find that Burke Devlin is, well, he's there. He's in his house. Uh, Burke says, "Oh, we were just talking about you." And he sort of gets mad at, "Well, what you were saying, what were you saying about me?" He goes, "What goes on in this house is not, or what happens to me is none of Burke Devlin's business." And Burke's like, I think Burke feels sort of like stunned by this, because he does say, "I don't know about that." He goes, "We're friends. If you're in a jam, I'd help you out." That's how Burke is taking this. Sam's very defensive, and Burke's even trying to defend Maggie here, because Sam is yelling at his argus. "Sam, take it easy." So you have great character relationship building here too. Um, but by the way, notice when a lot of the talking's going on, the portrait is in the focus of a lot of these shots. Great job by John Sedgwick and the production company and Dan Curtis Productions, because again, Maggie's late mother is a focal point in the story they're going to tell. Great job. And this is where this is where Burke Burke lays it on Sam. "Hey, I want you to paint my portrait. How much would you charge to paint my portrait?" And like Sam's like, "What?" Aren't you gonna leave? He even says, I thought you were gonna leave, later on here. And he said, would $1,000 do it? And at first, Sam's like, find another artist. And Maggie's like, no, 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 that kind of money's good. We need the money. He'll take it. She's all excited because this is a lot of money for her father, and it's something she knows he can easily do. Especially when you see that's another focus point of the portrait of Sam's late wife and Maggie's late mother. That, look, Burke always knew Sam was a good artist, and he can still see that Burke can see that Sam still is a great artist. He has passion. He can see the passion in his work, and you can really. I think that's look. There are many focal points of this portrait. Number one, obviously, we know that the late Mrs. Evans is going to be a focal point in the story of why Sam testifies against Burke. But number two, her portrait in this episode also represents the passion and love he had for his wife. Hence, he's an artist, he has passion. Um, Again, great storytelling with the camera. That's Again, there were no really words said about that how much Sam loved his wife. That but the camera is telling its own story within the story. Great job. Which I love. I love that. I love that they do that here. Um, so he, so Burke says, as Burke says, I want one waist high, like the Collins. He said, "You've been up to Collinwood, right?" He goes, "I wanted how they would do waist from the waist up." And there's where we cut to Isaac Collins, the Isaac Collins portrait. By the way, great segue by the crew to cut to Isaac Collins' portrait. And great job by John Sedgwick the way he directed this. And because standing right beneath the portrait is one Carolyn Stoddard, who's on the phone with Joe Haskell, who wants to take her to lunch. She says, "Well, meet me in the hotel, you know, lobby, And finally, because she tells Joe she's waiting for her uncle to come back home, um, she's got to, because her uncle's got to talk to the constable. Roger does come back home, bandaged. He still has the sling in. This is also the episode where he removes that same sling, and he says it's a little sore. He moves his left hand a bit, and he puts it around. He puts the sash around his niece's neck. He says, Here's a souvenir." And I love the tension between Carolyn and Roger because Carolyn is defending Burke to Roger, and Roger is furious. Roger even says, "Evidence or no evidence," This here is where you more see the heel tone of Lewis Edmonds' Roger Collins, and I do love that they're laying on that tone here in this episode. The 04 on air pilot was not perfect, but Mark Donovan's Roger Collins was. That's the Roger Collins I more wanted to see. And I'm not knocking Lewis Edmonds' performance. Make no mistake, he does do a great job. But again, I've talked about this. Lewis Edmonds is so just naturally his career. There are people who have certain types of charisma, and Lewis Edmonds was one of those actors that you can plainly see when his charisma was on. When he turned on his charisma, my God, did that switch go on? And it was so simple for him. He was such an actor who could change like that. That's something Alexandra Moltke had alluded to in an interview on the Coffin Box set, that Lewis Edmonds could go in and out of his character like that. And it's just like when you hear that and then you see it on camera, you see how easy it was for this guy because he was such an accomplished actor. He made playing Roger Collins an art form in every way. And from the, whether you want to say antagonist to the, lovable uncle who's got more charm in his right earlobe. Carolyn's not wrong. Lewis Edmonds lays on the charm when he wants to. But in this episode, they are showing the heel persona a lot more, which I love. I just wish they put, and again, it's a soap, gothic soap opera. We can't lay lay all our cards on the table, but we do get more of a sense of Roger being more of a heel in this episode, and it's really well done too. I love. There's my phone's ringing. I call that person back, but I do love the fact that we get that in this episode. We do get the heel persona of Roger a lot more in this episode. I mean, we've seen glimpses of it in previous episodes, but we do get a lot more of it here. Not, not that he's hurting somebody physically; he's having an emotional battle with his niece, which is really, really well done. Uh, so you also hear Carolyn say that she was the one that made it possible and she feels bad. And this is where you sort of see, again, they pull back really well. They have, you know, Lewis Edmonds knows how to pull back the horns with his character. He does it really well. And he comforts his niece. He says, "No one's blaming you, Ken." And, when you go back to a couple episodes, he was mad at her for Carolyn bringing Burke up here. So he's pulling in those horns though. Again, he knows how to lay on the charm. We go back to the Evans cottage, and guess what? Uh, Sam does ask Brooke, "I thought you were only going to be here for a couple days." He goes, things have changed. Things have changed." And that's the end of this episode. You notice, again, um, mention of Constable, but no Constable shown. That's actually the next episode. Constable Jonas Carter makes his debut as a character. We've had him mentioned, and now he's going to be shown in the next episode. Again, Dark Shadows to me was so great and perfect at this. You know what? And again, I've talked about this. This is something more stories need to make a focal point of, especially movies more so. Okay, if you don't have the character physically ready, where you can't physically show them because you don't have them cast it, mentioning them means a lot to your audience because it keeps that character fresh in people's mind. And that's something Dark Shadows does time and time again, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And they do it to a fucking art form. That's where I'm gonna end that video. Great, great direction. Really fun episode to review. I have not picked my favorite episode through 20 through 30 yet. I don't think I'm going to pick it yet. I know which one that I'm favoring a bit, but I want to wait. I want to go back through these episodes and review them a little more before I pick. Uh, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you tomorrow.